Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Representatives from the Kansas Highway Patrol say that what started out as a routine traffic stop transformed into something far more important last month after they pulled over a pair of men only to discover there was a kidnapped 6-year-old girl in the vehicle. According to a Facebook post put out by the agency this week, it all started one afternoon back in February when a trooper conducted a vehicle stop on a black SUV. The stop was for a simple traffic violation. However, things quickly got a lot more serious. After observing that the two male occupants of the SUV, both men in their 60s, were traveling with a young girl, the trooper decided to do a little more investigating. As it turned out, the passenger had a warrant out for his arrest in another state for kidnapping this same girl over a month prior. The situation with the driver wasn't much better. Apparently, that man had a criminal history that included homicide and numerous weapons violations. In their post, Kansas Highway Patrol say that the 6-year-old victim initially gave a fake name and date of birth to the trooper when questioned, as she had been coached to do so by the male suspects. However, as the trooper calmed the girl down, she felt comfortable enough to tell them who she really was. Thankfully, police say the girl was physically unharmed, though no real additional information has been released about the circumstances of her kidnapping or the crime in general. All we know is that both suspects were taken into custody after the stop, with representatives saying they were unable to share further details to protect the identity of the 6-year-old and the integrity of the open case. In this week's Facebook post, the Highway Patrol wrote in part, quote, "Thank you for the outpouring of support for the Kansas Highway Patrol and for the trooper involved. This was an incredible story that highlights the unpredictable nature of a trooper's job and the real impact they can have on people's lives."
Representatives from Florida's Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office released some equally strange and dramatic footage this week. Video which shows part of a military-style aerial operation that was reportedly launched in response to some teens in a stolen golf cart. The whole thing began just after 11 p.m. on March 19th, when Hillsborough County Police were alerted about the vehicle, which had been stolen from a local clubhouse in the city of Riverview. The group of teen suspects, who ranged in age from 14 to 16, had taken the vehicle out for a joyride and were driving around the city's Triple Creek community. Now, I don't know about you, but normally I'd assume this is the sort of thing you'd send a couple of officers out to deal with. You know, go out, get the golf cart back, and give these kids the business, so to speak. However, the sheriff's office responded quite a bit differently. They sent out a whole team, including an aerial unit. You kind of just have to see it for yourself.
Going up to Bent Twig Drive. You got 4 of them running southbound, 5 of them running southbound. One of them stopped, that's going to be the driver.
Alright, we got 3.
Yeah, running east on Hammock Park. He's at Fruitville, Hammock Park on the ground. Deputy sent you 5. Hey, great job. Good job setting up the perimeter real quick.
While this all seems a little over the top for a stolen golf cart, especially since there were no reported damages or injuries, I suppose there's no arguing that the tactic wasn't effective. As you saw, all 5 of the teens were quickly rounded up and arrested, and the golf cart was returned to the club where it had been stolen. In a statement, Sheriff Chad Chronister said, quote, "Theft, no matter the item, is a violation of our community's sense of safety. We will continue to protect the property of our residents and hold those responsible accountable for their actions." So far, no further information has been released about the suspects or the possible charges they will be facing.
Representatives from Texas's Harris County Sheriff's Office say that 3 teenage girls are in custody this week following a wild and unhinged incident in which they allegedly attempted to kill their own mother because she shut off the Wi-Fi at their house. The crime unfolded sometime overnight between March 23rd and 24th when Harris County police were called to a residence on the 3400 block of Barker's Crossing Avenue. They had been contacted after 3 teenage girls who lived at the home had allegedly attacked their mother and grandmother. While the exact circumstances behind the whole situation aren't clear at the time of this recording, the incident began after the mother shut off the Wi-Fi at the residence. That's when her daughters, ages 14, 15, and 16, allegedly grabbed kitchen knives and began trying to kill her. The mother was chased through the house and out into the street, where at one point she was reportedly hit in the head with a brick. When her mother attempted to intervene and calm the situation down, she was pushed to the ground. Thankfully, neither of the women were seriously injured, though the 3 teenage girls were arrested on charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Currently, they remain in custody. Apparently, this is far from the first time police have had to respond to the residents. Speaking to local media, a neighbor stated in part, quote, "They're known for that in this neighborhood. There's always cops around that house. I think that's so crazy. I mean, it just tells how unstable the family is, and it's very sad for them."
Representatives from the U.S. Marshals Service say that a woman is successfully in custody this week, more than a month after she allegedly murdered her firefighter wife during the middle of a heated argument and then fled across the southern border. The awful situation began shortly after 8 p.m. on February 17th, when police in San Diego County, California received a frantic 911 call from the mother of 49-year-old Rebecca Marodi. The mother stated that she had just overheard a chilling situation playing out over the live feed of her daughter's doorbell surveillance camera. She believed she was being brutally attacked. After rushing out to the scene, a home in the community of Ramona, officers found Rebecca lying inside suffering from multiple stab wounds. Paramedics attempted to help her, but sadly her injuries were too severe and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Upon reviewing the surveillance footage Rebecca's mother had told them about, police almost immediately zeroed in on a suspect, Rebecca's wife of approximately 2 years, 53-year-old Yolanda Marodi. While the disturbing video of what played out in the house that night has not been released to the public at this time, what police saw in the footage is described in a subsequent arrest warrant. According to the warrant, Yolanda can be seen chasing Rebecca on their patio with what appears to be a knife. Rebecca stops for a moment, and what looks like blood can be seen on her back before she yells, quote, "Yolanda, please, I don't want to die." Yolanda then responds, quote, "You should have thought about that before." After the alleged murder, Yolanda was captured by the same surveillance camera as she packed up random items and luggage, loading them into an SUV. She then headed for the southern border. The warrant for Yolanda in connection with the case was released quickly, though understandably the fact that she had already made it into Mexico significantly complicated things. Nonetheless, a search was launched, one that finally came to an end on March 22nd when police in the city of Mexicali managed to locate Yolanda and place her under arrest. At the time of this recording, the details of the arrest are unclear, though it's been reported that Yolanda is already back in U.S. custody. She is expected to face murder charges in the coming days. The motive behind the crime likewise has not been officially confirmed, though multiple reports state that Rebecca was planning to end her marriage with Yolanda and had informed her of this shortly before the crime. Perhaps the most disturbing part of all of this is that this is not the first time Yolanda has been implicated in a violent killing like this. Back in 2003, she pleaded guilty to the voluntary manslaughter of her husband, Jim Olejniczak, a crime that was eerily similar to Rebecca's murder. Yolanda ended up serving more than 10 years in prison for that killing, but was granted parole in 2015. Friends and family members are now mourning the loss of Rebecca Marodi, a woman who by all accounts devoted her life to keeping the public safe. She first started as a volunteer firefighter all the way back in 1993, working her way up until she was promoted to the position of captain in 2022. In a joint statement released by the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection and the Riverside County Fire Department, officials wrote that Rebecca was, quote, "deeply involved in peer support and hazmat, always prioritizing the well-being of her colleagues. Her legacy of mentorship, service, and dedication will be felt for years to come."
Representatives from Hawaii's Honolulu Police Department say that a doctor is facing attempted murder charges this week following an unhinged attack against his wife at a popular tourist spot, a crime he allegedly committed after she refused to take a photo with him. The whole thing unfolded on the morning of March 24th when the couple in question, 46-year-old Gerhard and 36-year-old Ariel Koenig, were on a hiking trail headed towards Pauli Lookout. The area is located on Kawaulau Mountain and is well known for its panoramic views of the island of Oahu. It's not clear exactly how things started turning sour that morning for the husband and wife. However, what we do know is that at some point the 46-year-old doctor flew into a rage. When he wanted to take a photo and Ariel did not, he apparently snapped and tried to kill her. According to police and witnesses, during the assault, Koenig began trying to push his wife over the cliff face. Though he was stopped before he was successful, he reportedly managed to beat Ariel in the head and face with a rock and stabbed her multiple times with 2 different syringes containing an unknown substance. Ariel was rushed to a hospital in critical condition after the disturbing attack, though by the time police arrived, Koenig had fled. He was arrested about 8 hours later at around 6:45 p.m. near Pauli Highway after a brief foot chase. Local media sources state that Koenig was originally from Pittsburgh and had previously worked as a university professor and anesthesiologist. At the time of this week's incident, he had reportedly been hired to do contract work for a hospital in Maui. Staff at the facility say that they were shocked by the incident, describing Koenig as friendly and quiet. All the same though, the 46-year-old was quickly suspended from working at the hospital. Currently, Koenig remains in custody on attempted murder charges. Ariel, meanwhile, is still in the hospital recovering from her injuries.
Representatives from Florida's Brevard County Sheriff's Office released what is perhaps some of the most classic Florida man footage we've seen in a while this week, after a local man was arrested while dressed in a Ronald McDonald costume. The clown takedown happened on the afternoon of March 24th when officers were called to a shopping center in the city of Palm Bay. Police were contacted after 40-year-old Christopher Marlowe reportedly caused a scene there and refused to leave the plaza. According to police, he had also previously been in trouble for trespassing there before. When officers arrived, they found Marlowe dressed in his Ronald McDonald costume. He had the iconic red and white striped shirt and yellow vest, though in place of the Golden Arches logo, there was apparently a skull instead. The 40-year-old did not take the news well when he was informed that he was being placed under arrest. He began resisting, and the whole thing quickly turned into a bit of a McDumpster fire.
Put your stuff down. Don't put your stuff down. Step it up. Oh, no, I'll just sleep. Put the on the ground. Get me now! Turn over now! Turn over now!
As you heard, before releasing the body camera footage this week, police took the time to cover Marlowe's profanity-laden ranting with comical honking noises. But that wasn't the only surreal part of this whole thing. In addition to finding a fake orange gun on Marlowe, a search of his bag revealed several additional clown costumes and a package of red noses. My personal favorite moment, though, was when one of the officers told the 40-year-old while putting him in the squad car, quote, "You look like a clown," only for Marlowe to reply, quote, "No shit, I am a clown, stupid." According to police, Marlowe has now been charged with trespassing and resisting an officer with violence. His previous rap sheet includes similar crimes, as well as a slew of drug-related offenses.
Representatives from California's Orange County District Attorney's Office say that a 48-year-old mother is in custody and facing charges this week after she allegedly murdered her own young son during what was supposed to be a fun vacation getaway. According to reports, 48-year-old Sarita Ramaraju took her 11-year-old son Yatin on the trip last week as part of a shared custody arrangement with her ex-husband. The pair had divorced in 2018 and she had since moved out of the state. But she had planned a 3-day trip to Disneyland for her and her son during one of her scheduled visitations. Not much is currently known about how the mother and son spent their time together, but from the sounds of it, the vacation to Disney seems to have been pretty normal. However, on March 19th, the day that Yatin was supposed to be returned to his father, the unthinkable happened. Shortly after 9 a.m. that morning, Sarita called 911 with a horrifying confession. She reportedly told dispatchers that she had killed her son and had ingested a large amount of pills, presumably with the intention of taking her own life as well. When officers arrived, they were met with the devastating scene. After heading into the hotel room at the La Quinta Inn where the mother and son had been staying, they found Yatin dead inside. The 11-year-old boy was lying on his bed with his throat slit. Heartbreakingly, he was surrounded by all of his souvenirs from Disneyland. Sarita was taken to a hospital where she was treated before being taken to jail. Police say that the 48-year-old had purchased a kitchen knife the day prior and had likely killed Yatin several hours before she finally called 911. She has now been charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of personally using a deadly weapon. In a statement about the awful crime, Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer said in part, quote, "The life of a child should not hang in the balance between 2 parents whose anger for each other outweighs their love for the child. Anger makes you forget who you love and what you're responsible for doing. The safest place for a child should be in their parents' arms. Instead of wrapping her arms around their son in love, she slit his throat and in the cruelest twist of fate, removed him from the very world she brought him into." If convicted, Sarita Ramaraju is facing 26 years to life in prison.
Authorities in the city of Toledo, Ohio, released a heartbreaking update in the case of a local missing teen this week, announcing that her remains have been found under horrific circumstances and that her own father has now been arrested in connection with the case. The whole thing began earlier this month when 13-year-old Kimani Latigue was reported missing by worried family members. Her grandmother, Dorothy, who she was living with at the time, said that she had arrived home to find the place in disarray. Kimani was supposed to have been there alone that night. However, she was nowhere to be found. There were other extremely worrying signs inside the house as well. As Dorothy looked around, she said she found some of Kimani's clothing on the couch and floor, clothing that included her pajamas and some of her undergarments. The stove was also on, and Kimani's keys and glasses were still there. In interviews with both police and local media, the family pleaded for answers. One of those who was particularly outspoken was the 13-year-old's father, 33-year-old Darnell Jones. Jones said that the last time he had seen Kimani was earlier the same morning of her disappearance. He claimed that around 12:30 a.m. on March 16th, Kimani had called him saying that she was scared to be at her grandmother's place alone. He told reporters, quote, "It seemed like somebody was trying to break into the house." While Jones appeared to claim that he had driven over there in these interviews, apparently he gave inconsistent statements to police. They soon became suspicious enough that on March 23rd, they issued a warrant for his arrest on an abduction charge. Before the 33-year-old father could be located, though, an awful discovery was made. During searches, a body was found on the second floor of a burned-out and vacant home on Miami Street. It was later determined that the remains belonged to Kimani. As if this weren't heartbreaking enough, an autopsy told an absolutely gruesome story. According to police, the 13-year-old had died from stab wounds to the neck that were so brutal that her head had almost been cut off. The teen's hands had also been removed, and there were signs that she had been sexually assaulted. While much of the circumstances surrounding the awful crime currently remain a mystery, we know that later that same day, Darnell Jones was tracked down about 2 hours away in Columbus. He was taken into custody, though not before allegedly pulling a gun on police. The 33-year-old was shot during the incident, though is expected to survive. Though it appears that Jones is currently the prime suspect in the case, others have since come forward saying that they'd had concerns about Kimani long before the tragedy. Speaking to local media, a former teacher of the teens said that she and others at Kimani's school had witnessed her numerous times with marks and bruises to her body. The teacher explained that she, fellow staff, and even parents of other children at the school had reported suspected abuse to the local Lucas County Children's Services Department many times, but that little seems to have been done. She also claimed that Kimani had talked about fighting with her grandmother and about how she was afraid to go home. As you might imagine, details like these have prompted quite a bit of public outrage. Shortly after the discovery of Kimani's body, the vacant home where she was found was spray painted with graffiti, some of it directly calling out Children's Services, which was formerly known as the Children's Services Bureau. Many more are still demanding to know how something like this was allowed to happen. Unfortunately, there are little to no answers to be had at this time. All we know is that Darnell Jones has been charged with murder and will remain in custody after being released from the hospital. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.